Hello everybody! I am so excited to share this card with you. It's one in a series of 5, and this one has a lot of meaning to it, and if you'll read my blog post, you will see why. I'm going to let that be a little mystery and you can figure it out later. I decided to play with the Mosaic Mood Specialty Designer Series paper and do something a little bit different outside of the box, not what the catalog had shown or even some things I'd seen on Pinterest. I decided I wanted to play with it and use a totally different stamp set and see if I could get it to mix and match. And I came up with some great cards that I think you will really enjoy. So the first thing that you're going to need is a piece of Whisper White cardstock. I use the thick because I just like that it's a little more durable and holds up in mailing. This is 5.5 by 11 and scored at 4 1/4 for a card size. Then we will have a piece of mint macaron, and this is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and it's just going to be the card base. Then we have a piece of the Mosaic Mood DSP Designer Series paper, and it is cut to go with the width of the design, and so it's just a little over 1 inch, I believe, but you want to make sure that you cut the width of the design. And then it is 5 1/4 inches also. And then we have a piece of Designer Series paper, also the Mosaic Mood, and you can see that it's got 2 really pretty sides, and I will actually have an example on my blog post and in this video of a couple of different options for the card that you could play with. This piece is 2.5 by 2, and that's just so you can stamp on it. And then finally we have 2 other pieces, and I am using the, let me look really quick because I always forget this new. I'm using the Mango Melody. You could also use crushed curry, but I just kind of wanted to go with this. This card actually has the crushed curry, but when we did this in a class, I liked the Mango Melody a little bit better. And this is cut at 3 3/4 by 2.5, and we will be cutting an oval out of that, as you can see. And then a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and it is cut at 3 inches by 2 1/4, and again we will be cutting it out, but you need it for the stamping. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our stamping. So we will need the Beautiful You stamp set, and I want this stamp right here, and then of course a clear block, and we will need some black, and I'm using the Tuxedo Black because I'm going to do a little tiny bit of coloring with the blends, and I like the idea of it being that it doesn't bleed. Just let it dry for just a second. So let's get this on our block and go ahead and stamp it. And actually, I'm going to set that aside for a minute. While we are stamping, we might as well stamp our words as well, because it's just easier to have them all stamped at the same time. And I'm going to use the Life Looks Beautiful on You stamp. All right, and there's a couple things that we're going to do, so hang tough with me for just a second. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and ink this up, and because I want it to really look nice, I am going to make sure it's good and inky, and then let's go ahead here and just, whoops, throw it around. Now let's go ahead and give it a stamp, and I'm going to kind of stamp it in the center, and the reason I'm stamping before I cut the oval is it's easier to line my oval up around it than it is to stamp in my oval and get it where I want it. So I've got that one stamped. Then I'm going to take my cardstock that is going to be the inside of my card, and I just want to dress it up just a little bit. I am not even going to color this one. I just want the image in here, and I'm just going to stamp that down here at the very corner of my card, and then I will set that aside. And while I'm at it, because I'm already stamping, I'm going to go ahead and pull out an envelope because I like everything to just be really cohesive and just look as nice as possible. So I've got my envelope. I didn't have that ready. I do now. And I'm just going to give that a little stamp here in this corner. That way it doesn't interfere with my addressing, and it still is going to just really coordinate with here. So then while I have this out, I want to pull out this piece of Designer Series paper, and I'm going to actually stamp her again. So what I'm going for is actually her dress. And I will kind of look at it and go and decide how I want it, how would I like to be placed, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it matters that much. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp this yet again. And there we go. And that's just going to sit there and dry for a moment. Okay, the next thing I want to do is get my mint macaron here while we still have our ink out. And I want to use this stamp again that that says, "Life looks beautiful on you," and I want to line this up on kind of on a line. Not that it's that big of a deal, but I always kind of like to line it up on my grid paper. Then get my stamp, and you're going to have a headshot probably here for just a second. But this makes it, here, I'm going to move this up for sure so you can see it. So I'm going to line this up on a grid line, maybe about right there. Then I want to take, sorry about my headshot again. Just ignore that for a second. And I'll line my block up with another line. That's going to give me a fairly straight positioning for when I stamp my words. And then I want to just ink this up again really good, and we're going to stamp kind of right there, kind of in the corner. Press it down, don't rock it, let your paper pull the ink off. And there we go. That is all of our stamping. And now what we'll do is we will come in here and let that just sit maybe for another minute or two so that it dries. And get your scissors. And you're going to just fussy cut her dress out. You don't need, you want her dress, and you want the hat. You can play with this, play with your paper and decide exactly how you want it centered. You know, whatever the exact design of the paper, you can do this with all different papers. Just make sure that it is a small enough print that it actually makes sense. Otherwise, it's just going to look like a big blob, and you know, somebody's going to have like this huge, I don't know, sunflower or daisy or something equally as unattractive if you don't think about the size, because you know, proportion does make a difference. And just like I said, just fussy cut this out, matching around your edges as much as you can. So you can see this dress has ended up mostly yellow. That is just fine. No girl wants to show up at the party with the same dress as everybody else, do they? I don't think so. And then we're going to go ahead and just cut the hat out as well. This reminds me so much of the really early 70s or the late 60s, some of the more fashionable type of styles with hats and whatnot. So I think this is kind of fun. All right, we have her clothes cut out. It's kind of like paper dolls. When I was a kid, my mom would get out the catalog for me, and there was a catalog, and it was probably Sears or Montgomery Ward, and all of the every model was posed exactly like that, 4 poses. And then she would have me cut out my favorite doll, and then the clothes would match every pose, or you know, the poses. It was really fun, and that's a lot of times how we made paper dolls. And she did that, you know, when we'd go to grandma's and stuff, and might be a little bored. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and color her very little. I like to use the Ivory Stampin' Blend marker, and then I also like to use the dark petal pink, and these are more for if you're doing somebody that's very light-skinned or Caucasian. So I want to just color her arms, and the ivory just looks a little more natural, I think, than the pink. The pink and the peaches are, I don't think, quite as realistic. Not that it matters that much. It's a card. And then I will just add a little bit of the pink in maybe where I want it to shadow just maybe a little bit, or have just a little bit of different color. I don't know if you can see that very well. I'll hold this up just a tiny touch. All right, want to show you another option. This one I have used the dark soft suede and the bronze, and that just gives us for a little bit darker skinned person, because face it, we're not all the same color, are we? And so I really like that we can think outside of the box there as well, and not always just go to flesh tone, whatever that is. So I'm going to set that aside for a different sample. So now we're going to come back in and we're going to dress her very quickly, and I am just using snail. I like to have my silicone pad when I do anything with adhesive, because I like it to be, you know, not stick to my paper, because then it makes my grid paper, I can use it longer. And I'm telling you what, sometimes my grid paper gets so used. All right, so I've got that snail on there, and then we're just literally going to not have it stick to our fingers. That's probably the first thing. And just dress her, just line it up on her, and there you go. She has a dress, and now she has, oh wait, I got to trim this out just a little bit more, or her hat's going to be over her eyes, and that is just weird. I kind of forgot about that because the ink comes off that off the Mosaic a little bit where it's shiny. All right. And there we go. She is dressed. So see, that wasn't so hard. And then the next thing we'll do is go to our die cutter and cut her out using the layering oval framelits. And I always just kind of match it up to see which size I like the best. I am going to go with, I think I'm going to go with this size. So I want that size for her, and then I think I'm going to jump it up to this one for the melon. So give me just a second. All right, we have those cut. Did you like how fast that was? That's called video editing. Don't be too impressed. I am not that speedy. So we're going to go ahead and assemble our card. So we have our card. Here is those two pieces. Here's the inside of our card. Going to just give it a nice press down with my bone folder. Then this piece is going, our mint macaron is going to go on the front. And just a little bit of snail. I use more than less because I don't like them to fall apart in the mail, and with our climate it gets dry and cold, and when things get cold they tend to not stick as well, which is interesting to me. Okay, go ahead and just center that up, and then we need our strip of Mosaic Designer Series paper. Oh wait, Mosaic Mood Specialty Designer Series paper. Run some snail down that, and then let's just put it about right here on our card. Whoops. I think I cut mine a little too long. That's okay, because I have the ability to trim it, which I'm going to do right now. All right, so there we have that. Then I will mount my very fashionable lady in this oval. I went with a little bit smaller oval than my sample because I feel like it was just a little bit too big and didn't line up as nicely as I wanted it to. And then finally, we need our Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to put 3 on it. I want 1 right in the center and then 2 on either end. The reason I do that is I don't like it to collapse down into the like it to collapse down into the card, and just adding that third dimensional makes all the difference in the world. All right, and then just figure out about where you want it. And there you have it, just a real simple card, mostly just inks, paper, and stamps. You do have the die cutting, so that adds a little bit to it. And then if you just want to pump that up just a little bit, which I kind of do, because I always like to add just a little bit of bling, so you can keep it simple, or you can just add a couple of these metallic pearls. Just adds a little something extra, and it just jumps it up a little bit more. So there's your card and your envelope. Super easy, wasn't it? I hope that you will try this card. Go to my blog, or go to my blog and hit shop, look at the blog, read the story behind this card, and order your own set of Beautiful You and the Mosaic Mood, because the next 4 cards that I feature will also feature those two things, the Beautiful You and the Mosaic Mood. So there you have it. There's your card. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Brenda with My Pastor's Wife Designs. I hope you have a fun day keeping it creative.